In this episode of Cars from Japan, presented by Cars from Japan, we're taking a look at a Subaru WRX STi S204. So I've been around WRXs and WRX STIs for 2 decades now. I was a salesman back in the day in Western Australia, and they used to be my favourite car before I discovered the GTR. I've modified a couple for ignition. I've had my own one with Motive Video, so I know a little bit more about WRXs than I do about other JDM cars. Now, Australia got the WRX and the WRX STi, which is obviously the hotter version of it, but there's a whole bunch of rare models that never made it to Australia. We had things like the Spec C, and then we had the S range. So S201 with the GC8 WRX, which was pretty wild, all the way through to S209 and everything in between. They're pretty rare in Australia because you've got to obviously bring them in yourself as a private import, or now Cars from Japan bring them in as grey imports. So I've never actually driven one before, so I'm pretty excited about it. But before I do, let's take a look at what makes an S204 so special. So the S204 doesn't start life the same as an STi. It actually has a strengthened chassis, so it's more rigid. So it's different to begin with, and then physically on the outside, the big difference is the rear wing, but obviously it's the front lip, and a couple of small changes, but the big thing that I love on this is the BBS wheels, and obviously it has Brembo brakes just like the STi as well. Although it looks like a regular STi engine, the S204 is most certainly not. Upgraded pistons in this and a few other revisions, but the main thing is it has a twin scroll turbocharger that's different, has equal length headers, so it hasn't really got that boxer rumble, and it makes 240 kilowatts instead of the 206 kilowatt gentleman agreement that it normally happens in Japan. Obviously all the usual STi stuff like the STi intercooler, the red inlet manifold, different inlet, but one thing you do notice, a totally different strut brace that it has, and of course the nice little build plate, one of 600 S204s. So better engine, better turbo, more power, more responsive, different sound. There's a lot different going on with the S204, and obviously you've got the rarity of that build plate. So they normally have uprated dampers compared to the normal STi, but this one has HKS coilovers. They've got larger sway bars as well. So there's a lot going on with this car compared to a normal STi. So the inside of the S204 is pretty familiar. A lot of it is the same as the STi, but obviously the color is different inside. And one thing that caught my eye, I thought these were aftermarket, but they're STi gauges here for oil temp, boost pressure, and oil pressure, which I think is a really cool touch in this car. A big ticket item is these STi Recaro seats. They're carbon-backed adjustable buckets, much more hardcore than the normal STi seats that you would normally get. And we were told that they were $6,000 new each, and people are paying as much as $15,000 for good condition pairs of these seats. So when this car is selling for $65,000 and $15,000 worth of seats, I reckon that's a pretty good deal. But these cost almost $20,000 more than an STi. So if these were sold in Australia, you would have been paying about $75,000, $80,000 plus on roads for one of these. So yeah, to get it for $65K from Cars from Japan, I reckon it's a pretty good bargain for a car that is quite rare, that has a lot of really cool gear on it. Here we go, you ready? So first impressions of the S204 is that this car is something special. Usually it's like sticker packs or one of this and you kind of go, yeah, whatever. No, this car feels very different to an STi, if you know the cars obviously, and it has some character. It feels special. The biggest difference to me is this engine. The 2-litre engine with this twin scroll turbo wants to rev. Like, it actually wants to rev to 8,000. I don't feel like power's falling over to about 7,000, but you can feel it. But it still has wicked mid-range punch that you just wouldn't expect from a 2 litre, but it hits harder than the 2.5, which may not necessarily be faster, but man, it's just like, look at that. Oh, it's just fun. And the sound is something else. By being equal length headers with the 2 litre, it just has a totally different sound to a normal WRX. The boxer rumble is not there. Not that I dislike the boxer rumble, but man, listen to this. That is so much fun. I am mega impressed with this car. This car truly is something special. It's not just a build plate and a bunch of cool little features or sticker packs or whatever. This is a genuine driver's car. This thing is lots of fun. Great driver feedback, LSDs, short ratio box. It is a blast to drive, and you can definitely feel the extra grunt. Look at that. Even with a 2 litre, it's on quick, it's on hard, and it is fun. Rather than being laggy than a big hit, it's still responsive, but it hits hard when it comes on, which makes it a heap of fun. And LSD's front and rear and the short ratio box make the most of that characteristic of this engine. It's not like a 2.5 that just has, you know, like 3,000 RPM of sort of usable power band. This thing is fun from a little bit over 3,000 to definitely well past 7, and you can definitely rev it to 8 if you want to. Power falls over after 7, you can feel it, but it will rev to 8, and that's not usual for WRXs, right? Like, I mean, how often can you do this in a WRX? Here we go, you ready? Okay, first gear. That was revving to 7,700, a little bit under 8,000 RPM, and it's still going and sounds just so different to a normal Rexy, and I like it. So the engine and gearbox together as a package are unreal in this thing, but the chassis, you can definitely tell the difference over a normal STi. You can feel that the chassis is stiffer, stronger, tauter. You can definitely feel the sway bars. This one has HKS coilovers, which makes it a little bit bumpy on these back roads compared to standard, I would guess. But the chassis control in this thing is mental. Obviously the Brembo brakes work great, but man, as a driver's car, there are a lot of people out there that don't think WRXs are great drivers' cars with understeer and this and that. But man, the S204, and I'm sure all of the S20 series of cars, they're special. This is really cool. It's a lot of fun. Obviously, I can't tell you what it's like on the circuit, but man, as a street car, this thing is sick fun. Sick fun. So, summary. This gives you a car that is unique, collectible, rare, whatever you want to call it, with that build plate, but at the same time, if you want to drive it, it really does give you an enhanced driver experience over any WRX STi I've driven. This thing is a lot of fun, it's cool. Man, I really like this thing way more than I expected. Joe was right. He actually said to me, you're gonna love this thing. And Joe, you were right. This thing is awesome. And at $65,000, yeah, I think I want it.